to Nobody Tells You This. I'm Laura Massetti. Nobody tells you the real rules of how hiring works. Nobody tells you what a manager is actually thinking when they evaluate you. Nobody tells you that waiting for someone to notice your work is one of the most expensive mistakes you'll ever make. My guest today has spent 15 years on the inside of career progress and the process that she knows exactly what nobody says out loud in the career space. Dr. Lindsey Plewa is a career coach, speaker, and founder of Dr. Lindsey Plewa Coaching. She has spent over 15 years helping professionals and job seekers turn self-awareness into a competitive advantage, including her time in higher education at Baruch College in New York City, where she works with graduate students navigating some of the most competitive career environments in the world. Dr. Lindsey Plewa, before we get into anything, I want to make sure the listeners understand how you got here and what 15 years inside the career process has taught you. Can you walk us through your journey?
Thanks, Laura, for having me today. A little bit about my career path. I'm someone who is curious about people. I'm curious what motivates them, what makes them unique. And even outside of work, I am reading memoirs, I'm watching documentaries, I'm listening to podcasts because I'm curious about people. And so that is what led me to career coaching. And much like I tell my clients, or a tip that I often share with my clients, is to shadow people whose work you want to be doing to see if it's a career that is a good fit for you. And so over 15 years ago, that's what I did. I shadowed career coaches at New York University, where I was getting my master's degree. And I realized that was the work that I wanted to do. And so that really led me to the world of career coaching. And currently, I'm the director at the Zicklin School of Business, where I work with MBA and MS students, as well as alumni of those programs. And while at Zicklin, I decided to go back to school. I noticed that our international students were struggling a bit more than our domestic students, and I wanted to learn how we could help. And so I went back to school to Northeastern University and pursued my doctorate, where I interviewed international students to see what was going on and how we could help. And shortly thereafter, I opened my private coaching business, Dr. Lindsey Plewa Coaching, where I work with clients that are usually at a crossroads, thinking about making a career change, feeling stuck where they're at, but not sure what's next. And I also work with a lot of international professionals as well.
So amazing. And what I did not mention at the beginning is Zicklin is where I went to college, or I went to got my MBA there. And you were part of that process for me in figuring out my career path, which it's so interesting, especially as you enter, whether it's your undergrad or your MBA, you go in thinking that you want to do something and you pop out completely different. So tell us a little bit more on like what you notice from the folks that you work with and like their journey of figuring it out. What does that look like?
Great question. So, it's interesting when you were asking that. A student came to mind, a graduate student that I worked with last week, who is in his second semester, and he is a evening MBA student, and he's taking his finance classes, and he's really enjoying them. And coming into business school, he thought he wanted to pursue data analytics. And so that is really common. I think going back to school can sometimes open your eyes to potential career paths, to potential possibilities that you didn't realize you might enjoy. And so while I work with students and also clients in my private practice, where that happens a lot, right? Exposing yourself to a field and then thinking, oh, I might want to pursue this. I've also worked with people who have come in to start a degree and know exactly what they want to do. So it's a wide variety, which is fun for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the biggest thing that I've taken away from going to Zicklin, getting MBA and figuring out my path after working for a few years have been the people that you meet through these programs are incredible. And most of them I'm still in touch with, my group that went through the cohort together, and they are just off doing incredible things. And It's the biggest learning I think that you have is from the peers that you're able to interact with and help influence you during that process.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you can be in person, it can be such an experience because of exactly that, because of all that you get to meet and experiences that you have.
Absolutely. So I bridged to a little bit more of the getting job and helping people position themselves. Right now, we are being completely overwhelmed by all the information coming out as far as AI, how do I get a job, these video interviews. No one knows where to go and how to position themselves in this process. So, what are you seeing out there that's and what sort of advice would you give?
It's a really interesting time right now. I think, given the impact of AI and also the unsure impact of AI, it's causing job seekers to really feel off balance. And so, one of the things that's interesting over the last year that we've seen is building your awareness of AI tools is not just for quote unquote technical professions. And so, something that we think about a lot as coaches is when things feel out of your control, what can you control? Right. And so the one thing that you can control in this scary job market, scary for a variety of reasons, is investing in yourself. And so one of the ways to invest in yourself now would be to look at certificates where you are learning AI and not just what are the prompts, right? Going beyond prompts, but figuring out how to create projects in Claude or Gemini or whatever your preferred tool is. There's a lot of great free programs out there as well, or very low cost programs. And so I think definitely spending some time and just really becoming familiar and getting acquainted is investment you can make in yourself right now.
Yeah, I thought that's great for no matter where you are in your career journey. The reality is that you need to adapt in some sort of way. The piece that I have sympathy for those that haven't been in the workforce so far, is not having a relative status quo as far as, what work life is, what contribution is in the workplace, what career looks like. So it's a challenging entry point that I think that they have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's challenging too because part of the way, or one of the ways that you figure out your career is by trying things out. And I know that's sometimes scary for people because a lot of us like stability. We like structure. We like to know that, this will lead to that, right? But so many people that I've worked with, I mean, myself included, it's been about trying something out and thinking, okay, I like this about it, but I actually like that better. And so, if there's anything sort of that can do right now, it's try a free certificate program. In addition to the different AI ones out there, there's great sites like Udemy and theforage.com. And they've partnered with companies like Citi and Lululemon to create these free certificate programs where you can try out different fields.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think there's, a great part of this era is you have access to all of that. And most of it is and you can learn on your own time, but it's definitely about putting in the time. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the thing and in yourself and investing, meaning investing time because there are a lot of free options.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me a little bit more on your coaching business and what sort of clients do you work with and what problems do you help them solve?
So for my coaching business, because of where I researched international professionals looking for a job in the US for the first time, I have attracted those clients. So, clients, for example, I'm working with someone now who grew up in China. She's working for an energy company in Germany. And she's looking to move into a similar company, but to the US or to London. And then I also have a client who is looking to make a career change. And so, working with graduate students over the last 15 plus years, that is definitely a specialty area of mine. A lot of people that come back to school are looking to make a career change or a career pivot. And so, with that client, it's really thinking about, do I want to leverage my past industry experience in pharma and in finance? And do I want to leverage my past functional experience in audit and in IT? And if it's no, do I want to do something completely different? So I would say those are the main clients that I tend to draw because of my background, is those international professionals and then also people looking to make a career change.
I had said this once before, but I have started working more intimately with coaches in my life right now for my business. And it is the best investment that I've made in myself and helping really unpack my vision and my direction. And I think that for anyone who is really questioning that, and I think that this is a very normally it's a very introspective period for yourself to figure out what your path is, but then especially now it's complex, and then add on the international piece. I think that the work you do is so valuable for so many people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You mentioned sort of all these like moving parts, right? So it's sort of what's happening in the market and who's potentially hiring. It's what skills and experience do I already have that I can leverage. And if you're new in your career, that can be also from volunteer experience, from leadership experience in undergrad, right? Doesn't have to come from paid work experience. So, is the market hiring? How can I leverage my skills? And then that third piece, which you mentioned introspective, which I think is a great word for it. And that's, well, what do I value? Why do I go to work every day? Is it the chance to make an impact? Is it the chance to work my way up the ladder? Is it the opportunity to have independence and a work lifestyle, that for me, right? It's unique to everyone. And I think that sometimes is the piece that I enjoy the most as a coach, being able to really work with people to think about what that is for them.
And that changes too so much in your life.
Thanks.
So
Exactly.
much in your life. I remember after I graduated, I wanted to be on a plane. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to have that more global lifestyle. And my goodness, it's the last thing that I want right now. But it's really hard to identify that and make that pivot. So it's to have someone on your side that you can speak to about that has been through it before, or really is a coach that can put you on the right direction.
Yeah, and right, what you're feeling. Like
Yeah.
it's actually okay if no longer want to climb up that corporate ladder, right? It's also okay if you do. Only you can really answer that for yourself.
And it's so interesting because the people that, whenever I'm going through something, I have the core set of people that I reach out to. Of course, it's always my mom, right? It's always my significant other, it's always my friends, and they know you from such their specific vantage point. And when you go to them for advice on something that's not within their wheelhouse, you're likely not going to get an answer that best serves you. So I love that having a career coach in the mix of things is kind of an additional person on your squad.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. A career coach is someone who I say is in the passenger seat, helping to provide directions, whether, back in the MapQuest days when we printed out the directions, right? Or now you have your GPS and you're right watching the GPS with the driver, or, giving you snacks along the way, right? In this case, I'm giving you resources, things to check out. You're driving, right? You're driving your career, and the career coach is really there for support, for validation, for guidance.
Another piece that I find so interesting that I'd like to talk about a little bit is the international aspect of things. Right now, I live in Italy, and many Europeans feel like America is the place where they see themselves be. What do you notice about some of the differences or adjustments that are needed to have those folks really flourish in the workplace here?
Yeah, great question. So I've worked with a lot of Asian professionals, mostly from mainland China. Um, the majority of the international students at our graduate school are from China, followed by India. And so, with them specifically, one of the things that I've helped them with is navigating the cultural differences, especially when it comes to building relationships, both networking as well as on the job professional relationships. So, one sort of stark contrast, for example, is in Chinese culture, really praising humility and being humble and waiting for your elders to speak right before you speak. And yeah, humility is really a characteristic. And in the US, one of the esteemed characteristics is confidence and speaking up for yourself and engaging. And one of the things I learned about is this disconnect of networking being on the job, and how that felt really selfish and arrogant for a lot of the Chinese students that I was working with. And so really kind of breaking that down and small in terms of what they were comfortable with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all the things that you don't recognize until after you adjust here. I know a lot of people who they've even done like a month contract or something like that in the US, and they have this feedback, especially in New York, that New Yorkers are really direct and confident in terms of arrogant as well. And maybe on a global scale, that's definitely, but that's our quo. That's
Mhm.
that's the really valuable trait. So yeah, it's incredibly, and it's also interesting the other way around too, because I'm also finding that a lot of folks from the US do want to seek international opportunities abroad as well. Have you experienced any of that?
I haven't in my work. I have to talk about it all the time. But, no, I haven't worked with any clients that have to make that move yet. But yeah,
It
that would be
is.
interesting.
If it the Italian culture, it's much more relationship and relaxed. And I think the best way to get business done is if, there's a few actually family names per region. And I feel like if you're one of those family names, that you'll have a better advantage in getting business done, which it makes it really hard when you're someone that moves
Yeah.
here and needs to somehow get a job and get involved with the community. So it's been a strange wake up call in a lot of ways.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I remember last time we spoke, you had mentioned you're part of a professional organization, right? With
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
international professionals. And I think that's great. And that, one of the resources as well that I often give my clients, especially if they're networking on LinkedIn, not hearing back, or people will connect and then they don't want to have the networking call. There's so many amazing professional organizations you can join. And if you're a student, often at a discounted rate. And it's a great way to meet people.
Yeah, yeah, you're right about that. I think that also just at when you're in university, whatever it is, not working at home,
Mhm.
actually going to campus and working in a coffee. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where I've never gotten a job by applying online directly. And granted, that's certainly what people need to do, but I think that there's value in being in person when you can be.
Huge value. And I hear time and time again that I did not get my job from just applying online. I think it's something like 80 to 90% of interviews are coming through referrals these days. And so doing whatever you can to really connect to the right people. And so, yeah, thinking beyond LinkedIn for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, something that I've noticed in your website and when we spoke is around the Clifton Finder, right? The
Mhm.
Clifton Strength Finder. Did I get that right?
LinkedIn strengths, yes.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit more about that and how you work with your clients and what value that provides as far as your coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Clifton Strengths is an assessment. It's not a test, so there's no right or wrong answers. It is an assessment that looks at your top 5 leadership skills, and so those leadership skills can fall under one of 4 overarching themes, and those 4 themes are relationship building, influencing, and strategic thinking. And so what it does is you start to identify what are the things that I'm innately good at? What are my innate strengths that I bring to a job? Because, for example, as a career coach, I work with 3 other coaches here at the graduate school, and our strengths are a little bit different, right? So, how we do our job shows up a little bit differently. And so, it's really important to identify really what's unique about you. What are your strengths? What are you naturally good at? And then this could potentially guide career path as well. It's not a magic 8 ball of these are my strengths. This is what I do. But you work with the coach to kind of identify, do you like using this strength? Is this a strength you want to use going forward? And so it can create self awareness to help you identify a career path. And it can be helpful for on the job support as well. Maybe you're in a new work environment. Maybe you're at a new company and want to pivot jobs. So, yeah, it's a great tool.
Yeah, that I think again, one of those things that we all probably need to take a couple times in our career for sure, because one, the world changes, our interests, our strengths change as well. And I think it's something that I wish that I more deliberately did. I think I did it when I was probably did it because you influenced us to try it out. But yeah, I think I tried so hard in my past to do things that would make me money. And good or bad, that's how I chose the career that I initially went into. And now I'm somewhere very, very different. I think when your soul doesn't fully align or your strengths, whatever it is, there's a problem. There's going to be a disconnect in a way.
Yeah. I was working actually with someone who was an analyst, and she was working from home, running reports primarily by herself all day. And 4 out of 5 of her Clifton strengths showed people skills, showed relationship building skills. I think empathy was her number 3. Yeah, 4 out of 5 showed people skills. And she knew that wasn't the right fit. She just wasn't sure why. And so part of what the assessment did was confirm her that she needed to be in a more people-oriented career. So whether that be working on a team, working for clients, that can mean many different things. But yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want for a second because there was something that you said in the past, and I think it's so interesting. So I want to hear, but you had said that nobody is going to advocate for you as hard as you will. So for early professionals who have really been taught to keep their head down, do hard work, and you will eventually be noticed. What do you want to say to that person?
I'm so glad you brought this up because it is so important. You are the biggest advocate for your career. And so, what that looks like is as soon as you start a job, one thing you can do is create a folder in your emails that says, personal or wins or whatever you want to call it. And every time you get positive feedback or a win, you save that email in that folder. And so that way, when it comes time to performance reviews, you have a record of all of your contributions, of everything that you've done. So it's not just saying, I deserve this promotion. It's, these are my contributions. This is why and how I've been valuable to the company. And so I think there's an expectation that as long as I do what I'm told, I'll get rewarded. And in some industries, yes, are much more predictable in that way, but most companies and most industries are not. And so it's up to you to really take stock in what you've done and to advocate yourself when the time comes.
It is such a simple, but I think career changing point that you just mentioned because it does be overwhelming as well to keep inventory of everything that you're working on, the reason, the value, your contributions of it. But you're right, if you just slide it away, it's
I
there.
never read
Like, yeah, exactly. Exactly. It sounds genius and it is, but it's actually so simple to
so simple.
incorporate as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not simple. We're probably not going to do it, right? So
Yeah.
keep it simple and that's some things easy. Whether you're at the beginning of your career or mid-career, I think it's just a great thing to do for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So you work with job seekers and employed professionals, but what is some of the more common mistakes that you see early professionals making early on as they started that cost them later on in their
I love this question. I think it's a really important question. And it reminds me of someone I worked with who did a summer internship in finance. And she told me that she was passed over for the full time offer because she didn't ask for more work. So at the company, her and there were 9 or 10 other interns, they were all given a certain amount of work, but it didn't necessarily occupy their whole week. And there were some interns that said, I'm done. What else can I do? And this is not something that she did. And it was never communicated to her. And I think that happens often. I think the people that stand out early in their careers are the ones that are taking initiative. They're the ones that are thinking about, well, how can I make this person's life easier? They're coming up with ideas. They're figuring things out on their own before asking questions, but they are asking questions. So not being afraid to speak up, really.
yeah. That ties really well into what you were saying before, as far as, going after it, right? Asking for going after it. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest things that I take away from early on in my career is being really purposeful in reaching out to people, asking for more, asking for clarification, because you can't rely that your managers or your leaders will always give you that. Because you will find people that are not right or wrong. They don't give that direction, but you need to be intuitive enough to and proactive enough about your life and your career to ask for those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also know that asking questions is smart, right?
Mhm.
It's smart to ask questions because the worst thing you want to do is spend hours and hours on something and then submit it and it's wrong and you need to redo the whole thing, right? So rather ask questions, get clarity up front because it'll save you and your manager time.
Yeah, exactly. So what about the next phase of your career? Not the early professional pivot, but that first promotion, that first something. What do you think are some of the skills, capabilities, actions that you should be putting in place to position yourself well for that?
I think the people that are successful are the ones that realize the strength of their network. And so looking beyond just your manager as a source of support. But if you are interacting with others at your company and you're inspired by others, let them know. Ask them if they'd be open to having coffee with you. Share with them your background and how you were inspired by whatever it was they were doing. They might become a mentor, someone you check in with every month or so after that. I think really, and that is a benefit of having a larger team or a larger company earlier in your career, right? Is because you have a lot of people to learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so interesting you say that because I pride myself so much on my success of one, getting my MBA because of the people that I was around and the teachers and the professors and whatnot, but really the people that I was around, the environment that I put myself in. And the other piece is working for a large company when I got started because there is a lot of opportunity that you can get. But I do also find that a lot of early professionals want to go straight into the startup world, which I get. I just feel like it also could potentially be a learning opportunity missed sometimes. Depends how you look at it.
Yeah, and it depends, to go back to those strengths, right? Are you someone who thrives around variety and likes to wear, different hats all the time? In that case, a
Right.
startup environment might be a little better for you, or in a larger company, your role might be a bit more structured. And so maybe that's enticing to you. So yeah, I think, different pros and cons for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I definitely want to include the Clifton Finder in the notes here.
Right.
But before we close out, the one thing that I ask every guest that's on the show is the thing that nobody told me early in my career, but changed everything for me once I figured it out was blank.
So the thing that nobody told me early on in my career is that success is different for everyone. And success doesn't necessarily mean the paycheck or the promotion. Success is about, do I look forward to Monday? And so I think early on in my career, as you said, sometimes those things change our values, what success looks like, right? But early on in my career, I think to recognize that success is different for everyone, and finding out what that meant for me, it was really important.
That's really powerful and I think a really healthy reminder no matter where you are in life. So, Lindsay, where can folks find you after if they're interested in your coaching, understanding more?
Sure. So the best way to find me would be through my website, which is www.lindseyplewa.com, LindseyPlewa.com. And I look forward to hearing from everyone.
Amazing. And I'll provide all that in the show notes. It was such a pleasure having you. It was great
Thank
to see you
you.
again. And you do such impactful work. And I think it's a great opportunity for people to really reset as far as what their values are, what their strengths are, and have the support from someone along the way is, you know, it could be a game changer for your move in your career.
So, yeah, I think whether you're early on in your career is important to think about these things. But then, I'm working with someone turning 50 and she's reevaluating these things, right? So, a career and what we do for work every day is such a big part of our lives. So, ideally, we want to take a minute to figure out like, well, what is alignment with who I am and what I want to be doing in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
we will be in touch. And until next time.
Okay, great. Thanks, Laura.